Good morning and welcome to Pat, where we use price action trading to break down mainstream media picks. I'm I'm Devin. That's
Wait a
Jeremy.
minute. I'm Jeremy.
That's Jeremy. I'm Devin. Anyway, welcome to Pat, and let's get to it. On the
Heck
list
yeah.
today, number one with a bullet, First Republic FRC. What was that, like number 2 or 3 yesterday? Which again, let me go ahead and switch to your chart here. Which again is very deflationary with a per se reduction in borrowing power. We don't know how good its loan book really is. The stock falls another 12% as bankers pitch to save the troubled regional bank. They say
Uh,
here, I don't see an FRC failure if one were to happen as a systemic risk. What a
yeah,
drop.
that thing's
What a drop.
yeah, I mean it goes from like, $145 stock down to like 476. I'd say that's a pretty significant problem.
God, I
And I
mean,
mean,
it wicked and then gapped.
you look at the history of this thing. I mean, it's been a juggernaut for a long time. Done very well, at least
Mhm.
over, around 80, $90 for a long time. Um Having this happen, I mean, that's yikes.
Yeah.
On a daily, I mean, you've got, just this big mess here. Oof.
Mhm. Yeah.
So from a day trader's point of view, I mean, the dead cat bounce has already happened long ago. That was this guy here. That was an easy trade. All right, so um, you get into this consolidation, and typically, if things were going well, you'd have a break above the previous high from the dead cat bounce, and a slow journey back up the trend, a little slower than this typically. Oof, man, this looks like every penny stock we've scalped.
Yeah, it does.
um, On the other hand, we do have a descending channel here to look at, and that's kind of interesting. So let me go ahead and map that out real quick. And I'll start with a 30-minute chart because this thing fell quite violently from, picking up to around 16 bucks on earnings and then just tipping over.
What are we on the 2 hour?
This is on the 30-minute. I mean, this is
Wow.
volatility's a little high in this one, so let's just kind of map it out a little bit. I'm going to come into that area. I usually try to ignore that upper range when it goes and gives it overshoot.
Mhm.
I want to know what the true trend is. So we're kind of cruising out of that. We've had a dead cat from that, dropped down to like 476, popped back up to almost $7 there yesterday. Um, I remember I was actually in the group chat yesterday. I was talking about this a little bit, just this part of it, and I was able to map that price out pretty well. I went ahead and cleared my dope before the show today because I wanted to make sure I had a clean slate. So effectively, we can say, all right, critical support's down in here. About 490 would be about a good range. As long as we hold above the mid zone between here and here, we should be okay to start looking at this as a swing trade. But I don't
Mhm.
tend to hang on to things like this for very long unless I'm going to be able to make some serious options revenue.
Oh, you're
So
thinking along the lines of wheel.
I might consider wheel trading this thing if it can stay in this channel long enough and slowly start to slope out of it.
You know, it's one of your favorite terms that I've heard, bailout.
Yeah, and you can kind of get with that program when the timing's right, but you've got to be very careful with something like this
When you're
because
in this spot, when you're in this
I mean,
position, like where the stock is right now, what I'm hearing you say is stay cautious, wait for confirmation of a break.
yeah, I mean, you got to be nimble if you're going to trade something like this. I know it's attractive to a lot of retail traders. It might even make meme stock status, but the thing to pay attention to is it's a lot of the depositors like you know depositors abandoned ship. Financially, they made some very high risk loans or high risk investments with the depositors' money. So, yeah, there's a
Mhm.
trust issue there. Um, can we see in the future perhaps management changing their model and eventually making a little bit more frugal loans or investments? That's hard to say. But the fact that other banks are willing to pitch in and try to bail it out, that kind of speaks a little bit. So I mean, it's generally recognized that most banks are perceived as not having a really risky portfolio. They like lower risk, frugal, slow returns, that type of thing. Um, the whole model of banking in America has been kind of changed for decades now, and it'll never be the same since 2008. It's just how it is.
Mhm.
So it depends on your appetite for risk and the ability to maintain a balanced portfolio and high risk. It's a juggling match. I mean, when you're trading your own account, it's a juggling match. You're taking risk. So when you come into being a banker and trading like you're like you've maybe been trading for a couple of years, you're moderately profitable, you're still around. eh, you kind of get into this mentality where risk is still kind of all over the place. So sometimes you're in a higher risk position, sometimes you're not. It takes you a while to learn that you want to be on the receiving end of everyone else's risk. So that's where option selling kind of takes place.
Mhm.
And something like this, I'm a little reluctant until I start to see this. I want to see it consolidate and maybe slowly start to trend up before I go and take interest in wheel trading it. I think it has some more downside possible if just the right news article comes out about it.
Mhm.
Just be cautious. Don't go jumping into something like this with a bunch of size and expecting golden returns and just an absolute vertical climb out. I think this is going to take some time to work out. That's all. So if you're going to go and trade this thing, okay, you can day trade it. It's got plenty of volatility for that. I enjoy day trading stuff like this, but buy and hold, I'd be reluctant until I start to see that trend. I don't see a trend here yet. This is just another gap down and some consolidation,
Mhm.
just like we saw on the daily chart.
God, look
Gap
at that.
down, consolidation.
Don't
So
go chasing waterfalls. Sorry.
that's it. That comes exactly to mind. That is one hell of a waterfall,
Yeah,
and
man.
there's no lake here.
Yeah, there's no rocks.
Yeah, rocks. Yep,
All right, let's move on to the next one, bud.
sure.
All right, here we go. All right, Microsoft MSFT up 8% after a quarter of excellent Azure cloud. I'm sorry, reacceleration, better execution, strong business software, good gaming, and LinkedIn. Not to mention lots of use already in AI. Yeah, AI is just top of the list on everything right now.
And
Microsoft said it's committed to Blizzard ATV or Activision Blizzard, sorry, ATVI. They're acquiring them,
oh
um,
wow,
and plans to appeal the UK's top antitrust regulator decision to oppose the deal. All right,
yeah,
so we've got basically MSFT and ATVI.
it's another. You know, Back in the day, we had controversy over monopolies, big companies absorbing little companies.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna happen everywhere. Microsoft is huge, and
Juggernaut.
they want if they want to acquire somebody, they'll push the paper. They'll sit there and they'll fight the fight to do it if they really want that company. Um, all in all, though, I look at the chart and I just still see that giant cup and handle on the weekly, and I'm just like, look at my chops. There's your rim line here, your second rim line there. We've broke the 50% retracement level. We're starting to accumulate some momentum here. Looking for 312, possibly up to 327, 328, somewhere in that neighborhood. Be acceptable for a nice cup coming up the rim. At that point, I would expect a pullback, which would be healthy for it. And that's where, if you want to get into it long here for a trade, it's looking good for a trade. But for long-term investment, same. You could go and trade that handle by selling some options against it and hedging the position and generating some income. Um, this is like, at this point, buying this breakout would be somewhere where I would say, okay, it would be prudent to put on what's known as the collar strategy in this situation, because we have breached that 50% retracement line. We have kind of pulled back before it. Doesn't count as the handle. This is still trend right here. This is still measured move. So if you wanted to invest in this thing, learn a little bit about options and figure out how to put on a collar strategy, uh, being that it takes a long time for this stuff to wind, it takes a lot of money to move a company this big.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it would be probably prudent to put on a leap, um, a leap collar strategy, something that's at least 6 months out, just to cover yourself. You can roll it out in time later. And the idea is, it captures in case of failure, essentially, or pulls back to this line here. You're not going to lose your initial investment. You'll keep it maintained. The covered call will cover a lot of that loss back to your level of entry. And the idea is, it gets you out of the position for, if you set up a collar correctly, it gets you out of the position in case it has a big pullback or something goes wrong. Maybe they have, a hard time getting through that antitrust situation over in Europe. Um, it's not likely that they won't have a problem there. They usually have to fight and, tooth and nail this type of thing. So a collar strategy would be prudent here, just to make sure that you're not taking a loss on something like that should that happen and controversy gets out. And you know how the rumor mill works. Things happen, prices change.
Mm-hmm.
Really just overreaction typically. But yeah, that's one heck of a strong push. I'd expect it to consolidate here a couple more days and maybe continue to trend, but this has to be absorbed a little bit. The earnings call was just epic. So you can
Hmm.
see even recently there's a little absorption here. So definitely draw a little bit of a liquidity zone right in here and see that giant wick sticking out of the top there. If we can melt that zone and press on, I'll have a nice clean trust in the trend to run to 312. Um, if this pulls back a little bit, it wouldn't surprise me to go into the other zone here. And just know that there's buyers here and there's sellers here.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty simple. So watch for consolidation. Make sure it stays above this liquidity zone, and make sure it melts through this slowly. We don't want to see a gap through that, because gaps usually will have a pullback.
Yep. They usually come back to themselves.
That's a nice looking bull flag though. So as
Mm-hmm.
long as it consolidates in here, it doesn't get too deep into this liquidity zone, I think we got a pretty good shot at trending up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good stuff. Back on it.
Well,
Let's see here. That's not showing. Oh yeah, there we are. We're into 3. All right. Alphabet. Google. GOOGL or GOOG.
let's
Unable to
take a
hold.
quick look at ATVI. Sorry.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, ATVI. That's right. Activision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Show me Activision.
I mean, they're
Whoa.
Microsoft is acquiring them, but I'm
Yep.
sure their price is a little lower than this. So
Yeah.
yeah, just be careful.
Wow,
Um,
that's a direct opposite of
yeah,
Microsoft. You think that's Microsoft selling off its shares?
I don't think so. I think this is just, it was a little overpriced, so the offer came back. But look, we got measured move up. We got 50% retracement. So depending on how long it's going to take for this acquisition,
Look at that gap up. That thing's ginormous.
yeah.
Now, who is it that goes? It's who is it that goes up and down like when an acquisition's happening?
So when an
Who's that usually?
acquisition happens, you got to realize that the revenue to make that purchase comes from the company that's making the purchase. So tends to pull those companies back upon announcing that they're going to be absorbing another company. Typically, it's the other way around for the company that's being bought. It usually shoots right up to the agreed upon price that they're going to purchase them for and stays there. In this case, I'll have to look into the news on that, but because I don't tend to look at news, I just look at
Yeah,
price action.
watch the chart.
But I do see something that's a little promising for today to at least return to median. So maybe a push to about 77, 75 or so. Give it a little swing trade for today, maybe.
Little
Um,
50% retracement. Is that what you're saying?
and maybe just a recapture of the first dead cat bounce, like in here. So maybe say set your targets up here if you want. You can just go to each control bar and that's trend and shoot for price targets, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Just like any penny stock, but
Get
if
on
it really
base.
gets crazy, I'll have to look at what the agreed upon acquisition price was and figure that out. But we could see a 50% retracement of that, but that's not as likely as coming up for a dead cat bounce and walking out sideways. I'll have to
Mm-hmm.
see what the numbers look like, though. I'll have to look at news. I rarely do that, so I'll see what
Nah.
they
Well, just sit there
what
and
they
watch.
say.
Just sit there and watch the chart.
Yep, that's it.
All right.
Day traders welcome.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's see here. So Google unable to
Still making moves.
hold on to muted after hours stock gains despite delivering a very strong and disciplined quarter. Surprising inflection in cloud as well as strong advertising and gathering strength in YouTube. Huge buyback, real belt tightening. Still work to do, but comforting.
Well, it's holding in that respected range. We've
Mm-hmm.
been watching this one for a while, and we have an expansion here. If you
Mm-hmm.
notice, there's the old trend line. You got expansion out here. Draw the angular, looking like this. So as long as we hold in this range and we can continue to accumulate, we can start reaching for the next control areas just on the daily chart. Weekly chart, it's already made a really nice pullback of this entire trend, and it dipped it, came right back in.
Yeah, that looks like just consolidation for another move.
Yeah, and if we wanted to, we could go and adjust this trend line to line up with that, or you can go and change it to these positions down here. It's hard to do with the extension line there.
Doing
There we
kind of
go.
like a center line kind of thing.
Let's kind of figure out based on this trend, if the natural trend were to continue from this without all of this, this is about fair value and what's expected. So if the company continues to grow at a natural pace, this is what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you look back at different times, when you got these uh, bouts of volatility here, it generally will follow a base trend that kind of extends back. Same for pretty much everything on the market. If it's got that nice long upsloping trend and you get this volatility where you get a little bit outside of fair value or people are really chasing this on up, um, the natural trend is going to be an ideal of where you expect it to go after you've had some bearish volatility. So we can do the same with SPY. We can kind of look at the S&P and figure about where the natural trend line should be, and we're right at it today. So
Mm-hmm.
just kind of a comparison, but we're looking strong. Just let it consolidate in this zone. Go and identify your liquidity. You can see that the basis candle, you got a short-term liquidity zone right in here and right in here. So as long as eventually the sellers melt down, get chewed through, eventually the trend will kind of creep out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pretty typical swing trader type stuff.
I mean, looks good to me. I like the look of it for well, I mean, that's arranging. I like that's
Ranging's good.
yeah, that's beautiful. I like it.
All ranges break. There is one thing to be note, a little bit of note. So this will be a critical support area here. Make that one red. This starts to look like that rounding top, and I talk about these all the time. They look bearish until they're not. and a lot of people will see this as a rounding top reversal. But when they hit a critical support point, watch for a quick reversal and then just a tear. So oftentimes we'll see these when we're day trading. We'll see these rounding tops. They'll look like they're going to break support and crash down and retrace the previous trend. And then there's a higher probability actually of them testing support and then just ripping a face off. So
Mm-hmm.
we love rounding tops.
Mm-hmm.
And it's done this before back here and it did end up pulling back. But as long as we hold the critical support area, it should be able to beat a reversal.
All right, good stuff. On to the next.
NVIDIA.
Yeah, NVIDIA, NVDA. Both Alphabet and Microsoft make sure people know that they run on H100 NVIDIA graphics cards for AI. Alphabet and Microsoft put NVIDIA right at the top of their commentary. At our April monthly meeting on Tuesday, we replaced Alphabet on the club's 10 core holdings with NVIDIA. Also, check out our rapid fire update. Yeah, whatever.
Very cool. And here again is that natural trend line I put in. And NVIDIA, I mean, smoked the 50% retracement line. Went straight on through. This is a hell of a strong trend. I do like it for long term. However, it's at a key resistance point. I'd love to see a pullback here. And if it holds support, around that 260 to 262 area, we're golden for another push through that zone and then continue on with that trend on up to the previous highs and maybe then some. That's long term. Short term, a pullback would be healthy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it says hell with you and continues creeping on up.
I mean, it's got consolidation right there.
Yeah, it's been consolidated for plenty of time here. Probably in the next week or so, we should see a good sign of whether this is going to continue trending on through that resistance point. This is a resistance at about 279 to 280. Um, let's see if it can chew through that and get moving. Otherwise, we, we can either continue to consolidate for a little while longer, or we can start to, if things don't go right, look for a 50% retracement. Short term, liquidity is right here. It's pretty plain to see. In fact, we can gauge it from this candle here. Draw it on. Looks like we tested that liquidity the other day here. And let's go to a 2 hour and have a look at that. So this is our area where there are buyers. This is a demand zone. And we tested exactly the bottom of that and bounced right off the bottom of that. Very good trade the other day. Looking for continued momentum. And again, this is going to be a resistance zone. Draw your supply zone up here, and there you go. You have supply and demand. All you got to do is chew through this consolidation and see it through. So, like we said, it can continue ranging in this consolidation pattern long term, but in the meantime, we do have some prices to go from and to. So there's plenty of trading to happen here in this consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
As far as investors go, like I said, get in a little bit of options knowledge, and you can take advantage of this volatility. You can go and you can sell cash covered puts down here at about 260 strike, and then you can say, all right, I would like to see it get through this 280, but I can sit there with like 281 calls and make a little revenue in between while you just sit and get paid for this volatility to finally break out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's a great way to generate some income. And NVIDIA options are pretty expensive, so I mean, you make great premium selling options on that.
Yeah. Remember, he's talking about selling options.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. All right. Perfect. On to the next one. Let's see here. So number 5, the Dow and S&P and Nasdaq are set to open higher, getting a boost in market sentiment from solid quarters from Microsoft and Alphabet Club holding. So Meta and Pioneer Natural Resources issued their results after the closing bell on Wednesday. 4 club names report Thursday morning, and Amazon arrives after the bell. So yeah.
So Meta here, same old, big old descending wedge, 50% retracement met. It pulled back beautifully, did great there. Looking left, we've got some control zones, and we also have an insane breakout, but I'll show you in just a moment. But look at this perfect pullback on that 50% retracement. Very
Mm-hmm.
nice. Now look, boom,
Wow.
right through. This is what I love to see on that 50% retracement line is perfect pullback and then a nice earnings beat, just smoked it. Now we're going straight for that target up here, 248. Beautiful trade. Um, I've got a position on in that, running some option spreads, and they're doing great, and they'll be doing even better today. Um, Looking at the run up to that, there really wasn't much indication other than earnings coming in. And I don't typically like to hold any positions into earnings because you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you'll get a really great earnings announcement and price will plummet. The bad news or the good news is bad things sometimes happens. Going into this, my option spreads are actually neutral. So I can go and trade on both sides of price and take a what's known as a condor into something like this. I know the losing side is going to be wiped out, but the winning side will more than double what the losing side risk was. So no problem there. All it had to do was move a little bit. And boy, did it. So currently this morning, it is just trotting right along. And if you get into a 5 minute even, you can see this is a nice measured move setting up here, and it would take us straight to
Mm-hmm.
that target.
Yep.
So um, on occasion, I've known
Hell, it's got
sometimes
a little bit of a cup and handle in there too.
a little bit. I mean, it's got all the consolidation markers of a continued trend.
Mm-hmm.
Even still, in short term, if you want to day trade this thing, know where your resistance is, which is going to be right at the top of that wick, and know where your 50% retracement is of that entire bar. Let's see, about 222 would be a good spot. Why didn't my line come in? There we go. And then your short-term support is going to be right at the base of this consolidation here. So if this, then that. If it gets rejected here, cool, we can expect it to pull back here, probably range some more, maybe even break that support and head for 50%. But this is looking stronger than I'll get at. So I would expect it to consolidate above this resistance and maybe trend on up to 248 today, like literally today. So,
Oh yeah.
uh, looking at those price targets, I mean, they're all laid out. They're all right in that range. And looking left, just from the lines I just drew, look, they line right up with a control bar at the peak of a trend. So
I
that's
mean,
why you're always cautious.
and we're 2 to 3 on the daily,
Right. So
and
just
we're
to
and
be
we're in our pull. Like that's a pullback on the daily. Like it's
right.
ready. It's ready to go again.
So effectively, when you know where the control range is, you know where your trades are, and when you have a key support and resistance in a consolidation pattern, and it's at a previous point of interest, always know that if it wants to go higher, it's got to beat this range. If if they want it down lower, they can certainly pull it back.
Mhm.
So as far as investors go, there's a lot of people pouring money into Meta. I mean, there's a lot of people pouring money into Meta. Um, Platform just has everything going for it. All it takes is decent management, and the company does well. Um, yeah, definitely looking like both a day trade, swing trade, and possibly a good investment opportunity. So watch the price action today. If it continues to beat this, you're golden. That thing will run right to 248, no problem.
All right, rock and roll, man. Thanks.
No problem. That's a good
So,
trade. Write that one down. You might be able to get a few bucks out of that one today.
Meta, Pioneer Natural PXD, Pioneer Natural Resources.
Interesting one. That is volatile. We've been, doping that for a few days now. Kind of thinking didn't quite reach this 50% retracement line, and there's some unfinished business there. We did make a good pullback here. It's a little choppy, a little volatile, hard to gauge. But yesterday we closed a doji, so we have short-term supply and demand. Well, where does that take us on the 2-hour? Right to the base of this control bar, basically. So pullback was definitely expected. It can pull back a little bit more and finish the business to the very bottom of that. If it holds there, cool. We could see its support there and run on up. 215 would be about core support or key support. Looking at midway target up here around 233. And this is a bearish measured move that popped for support. This has its own retracement. So look for, I'll do a segment line so we know where it is. Right under here. And then let's go back to the daily chart and look at something else. So this doji is pretty important, and it creates its own supply and demand zone. This was indecision, so traders couldn't decide if this was going to fail support or if it was going to break out because there was an argument between supply and demand. Well, all we got to do is observe the argument and make some rational decisions. Well, here's your range. We're opening down under that today. This is after hours. So now we have to get back through both of these zones. This becomes a supply zone, and if we breach it, this becomes consolidation expectations, and this becomes your second supply zone. So you have two supply zones above price. Expect if it breaks out real quick, see it about 220 before rejection, come back and test the support line. There's still some unfinished business here, so I would take caution in this one. I wouldn't just go and dump money into it for a buy and hold. I would be more interested in seeing what plays out of this particular consolidation and pullback and go from there. It's got plenty of room to run, but it's got to get through this mess first.
Okay, there you go. Come on, work for me, mouse. All right, let's see here. Amazon, AMZN.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorites. I had, actually, I went and I tagged Mr. Tuttle and asked Jim in a tweet last week or the week before, I can't remember. Got a reply, actually. It was kind of neat. Makes me feel humble. Long story short, I was talking about the other day, old Cramer was throwing a little, well, the other week, Cramer was throwing a little shade at Amazon there, saying, words like underperform and, it's been kind of a mess. Well, this is what I love to trade, these descending wedges, because they love to hit those 50% retracements. And man, that's a hell of a nice swing from about $100 to 144.
Mm-hmm.
So watching the angular resistance like a hawk on this one, I am. And if it consolidates through here nice and healthfully, and we got earnings, is it today or tomorrow? I don't remember. I think it's today.
It's there. So
After hours
Thursday morning,
today.
Amazon's after the bell today.
Yep. Watch that angular resistance very carefully. This could be make it or break it moment. Either A, it gets rejected and comes back down in the channel, or B, it breaks this angular and just starts to fly. So I'm looking to maybe put on a condor for the earnings on this one, but I think it might be too late. I'll probably have to wait and see, and maybe I'll just grab some equity and trade that. But it's looking very healthy in this area. I think if we can get through this liquidity zone, we can punch right on out and start heading for 110 first. There's certainly a chance it can have they can have some bad earnings, but one thing that is kind of noted is that recently they laid off some staff and they've tightened their belt, so to speak. That doesn't mean necessarily that the company is going to be a failure, or it's going to be, beating down the investors. What that means is the company is doing what it can to conserve capital and remain, in the black, so to speak, remain profitable. So when they start laying people off and trying to tighten the belt, yeah, it's a sign of the economy more than anything. But the equity itself or the company itself is doing controls or making decisions to keep the company going in spite of some sacrifice. Effectively, in the short term, that tends to pump revenue a bit and pump up the equity in the company a little bit because when you're not spending as much on payroll, well, if you're still maintaining a marginal income, you get a short term shock. So you're not spending as many labor dollars, you get a big pump into your equity. Um, that's what we're seeing here, and we've already kind of seen that. We're at that angular resistance. We're kind of hanging out, and if they come out and say the right things during the earnings call, I think a lot of people will be on board with that later in future success. Plus, it can kind of help guidance a little bit too. So
Right on.
expect some big volatility in this earnings, particularly, and it can certainly come back down, but just be ready for a rip roaring rally out of that thing if it gets loose. So
Heard. Heard. Boeing. BA.
oh yeah.
Roughly 3.3.5% gain helps Dow futures. The aircraft maker plans to increase 737 MAX production by more than 20% to 38 planes per month. Starting later this year, Boeing also plans to boost 787 Dreamliner output. The company reported a wider first quarter loss, but beat estimates on revenue that rose 28% from the year ago period.
This has been something we've been watching for a while, and it's been ranging in this area. Right now, we're kind of hugging the center line,
Yeah.
and we've got a chance of punching through or running for liquidity up here. But um, short term, not very exciting, except for yesterday. That was a pretty nice short. But that's kind of an island here too. So let's see if we get through this area and break either up or down. Short term, look for a short term trend line, something like this, or look for consolidation to a point of a big old flag pattern here, or big old wedge pattern here. If
Yep.
it wedges, all wedges tend to break, all ranges tend to break, and we're hanging around this center line of this channel, we could break either way. So give us a couple days to consolidate and shake things around before we decide what direction to go on that. Again, it looks like you know earnings was yesterday, and we're kind of just basically flat. We're not really doing much. We got a big pump, but it's coming right back down to fair value. As long as it doesn't fade, we could see a little bit more bullish momentum out of this thing. But let's wait and see what happens with this channel long term before we go and start investing in this.
Oh yeah, that's ranging. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, you zoom way out, it's kind of had these pockets of accumulation before running on up. There is potential for this nice double bottom to play out. Leg one, consolidate. Leg two, big old measure move to like 290. But just be very cautious. I mean,
it's like
that was one.
you're in the middle of the middle. Like
Right.
you got
Yeah, you don't diddle in the middle.
no. I mean, you are so in the middle on that on two separate spots. On the
Right.
what was that? The 2 hour that you were
That
looking
was the
at
two
before?
hour before.
Yeah. So now we're on the
And
weekly.
even on a daily, we do have a nice wedge shape coming to a point in here to
Yeah.
kind of
Well, I mean
use your
that's what we're.
imagination.
I mean that gets us excited. That's what we're paying attention to is that wedge is right there. So I mean it pops, it could rip.
It could definitely rip, but it's got some consolidation to do. I'd say give it a few days. We'll see what happens with it.
Yep.
And, if this wedge breaks, we'll know which way it's going to go and we can take a trade. But as far as long term investment, it's got to get out of this consolidation before I can go and say, let's park some money here for a few years,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. All right. On to the next. see. Humana, HUM, up about 1.5 after the health insurer had a mixed first quarter.
Gotta add that one to the list.
Okay. Ooh, look at that. That's some good volatility right there.
Yeah, add it to the list real quick. There we go. I'm keeping track of our watch list here for
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Yeah, we need that. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. All right, we're in. So, let's have a look at the weekly chart on this one. Giant cup and handle. Nice strong trend behind it. Full two-leg measured move. Pullback's been made. There is no unfinished business here. Let's mark things out. So we had our pullback to about 50% of that trend. Kind of
Hmm.
subdivide it. This was an overshoot.
It
Nice cup
is.
and handle.
It is almost time to get in on that.
It's looking like. And always with the cup and handle, you end up with two rim lines. Very, very common. You get your peak rim line, your first rim line. Haven't quite reached that yet. We've got some way to go. We've had a nice little bullish measured move right up to here, pulled back, overshot the 50% retracement, but it came right down to an angular support zone. And we have, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you something real quick. How much do I want to say that this might end up in the natural trend line on the weekly? It's fairly close. If I attach it down here, it's a little better.
Oh, yeah.
So let's see if we can get out of that pullback and into some bullish action to head for the handles up here, or the rim walls, I like to call them. So short term, look for a pullback. Go to the 2-hour chart here. Well, that's already done.
Yeah, that's had its
Nice.
pullback. Oh, let's go.
Full leg measured move. Short term pullback's done.
Oh, I know what you're going to be watching today.
Yep. That's a good one. And, if we start to trend in this area, again, pay attention to the dojis. You've got long wicks here. So we have a big old demand zone here and a big old supply zone here, just linking to these two wicks here. Let's kind of see it break this range and give us a sign for direction. I'm thinking it's a little more bullish than bearish, but we always take caution when we see big volatility. We kind of look for consolidation and then a break and trend. So short term, great trading stock. Long term, we could see this cup and handle full on pull out of it. Um, on the weekly, we do have a classic 3-bar. We get the evening star here. Oftentimes, we'll get a push all the way up to just a couple pennies below the peak of that thing. So look for a push to 520 in the longer term situation, and how we've wicked up to 540 up here. So definitely got the chutzpah to get there. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is a beautiful setup. All right, on to the next.
for trading and investing, I like that one.
Both, yeah, looks good on both ends. So far today we've got it's Meta and Humana that are the big performers for us today. Is that what I'm hearing, or that we want to be looking at?
Yeah, definitely look for Meta to be a little more volatile. It can definitely complete that measured move. And then Humana here, it's got potential to push onto that cup and handle, but it's going to be a little bit of volatility before we get there. Just kind of watch for consolidation and a break. Always trade the break.
Okay.
Uh, Apple, I like Apple.
Okay. Yeah, Apple. Let's see here. 170 from 160. Deutsche Bank has a buy rating, and Barclays a hold. Both analysts from research firms expect Apple to match estimates with next week's release of quarterly results. Strengthen iPhones to offset some softness elsewhere.
So we doped this one up pretty good. We had a nice bullish measured move. Didn't quite finish the second leg here, and it hit a key resistance point, which we clearly mapped out right here. We're looking for a push through that angle or that resistance here to finish this business up to this top of the box here. So yeah, I can agree with the $170 price target, no problem. Um, I would also say that if it continues to trend, we can start reaching for the third leg on the measured move and maybe even approach 195 in the long term. But just, take that with a grain of salt because this measured move stuff usually will happen in twos and then pull back to a 50% and maybe resume a measured move back up to the top through that resistance 170 and the push to 195, 196. Pretty typical stuff. So let me actually take these and grow them out here a little bit because this is going to take a little more time than we think. So look more like this. Look for a push to the top of the box, pull back, and then push up here, consolidate in this area, and then maybe finish out that move. This can take about a year or two. Long term, short term, we've kind of hit this resistance at this pivot point. We do have some unfinished business up here to get to, but let's see if it pulls back first. And right in the middle is where we're looking. We look at the split in these boxes. Doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, but close. Pullback would be healthy to about 160, and then continue to that 170 target. That's more reasonable for the daily chart. As for the 2-hour chart, we've kind of already made a turn. We've come off the floor here. We've made 50% of this trend here, which was steep. So
Yeah.
we've absorbed this overshoot, and now we're kind of trading in a zone. So we've split the difference. Make your assumption of this being your support, which is right in the middle of the two pivots. And if this then that tells us, well, we've bounced here, we've made a bullish measured move here. As long as we can clear this resistance, cool, we can continue on the trend. But also, even shorter than that, there's another retracement target here. So if it's going to continue to be choppy and volatile, you always look for a 50% pullback for your opportunities. And that is a nice, if you ignore this overshoot, this is a nice little two-leg measured move already done. So let's see what happens. I think today we will have some decisions made, and the chart will make them for us. So let the chart do its thing. I'd love to see it pull back down to the support and then continue on, but you know anything can happen with Apple. She's volatile.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see
Lots of
here.
attention on it. Lots of participation from traders and retail and institutional as well. So
Okay. Let's see. Tesla, TSLA.
oh my goodness.
They've gone to hold from buy, and the price
Ah,
target goes to 185 a share from 230.
well, let's have a look at the daily.
Let's see here. Relative price aggression is not supportive of a high price to earnings.
Yeah.
Results do not demonstrate demand elasticity. They need
We
cost
fell
programs.
into the gap yesterday, and we're going to probably look for resume this gap here.
Mind the gap.
What I'm talking about. And looking at I have a price target short term of 140 on that thing for this. Um, Basically, you got a bearish measured move. In spite of this being a gap, you had a gap consolidation, and there's this gap back here that we're filling. We're likely to hit the bottom of that about 140. It can surprise us, but I think 140 is probably the best we can say for a short-term target. Long-term, I don't know. If we can hang on to about the regression line in this channel, and I might just slightly adjust that today. There we go. If we can remain in the regression line, this one's skewed if you noticed,
Mm-hmm.
because that descending channel was clean. I've traded the tar out of this. I put in knowing exactly where it was going to go, made a killing on that trade. Well,
Oh
we're
yeah.
looking like we're already at about a 50% retracement at 150-ish. So be cautious of possible bounces before it hits that 140. It can always bounce off the middle of the gap and resume. But in the short term, I'm still a little bit bearish on this to continue to pull back. Um,
Yeah, man. Pull back and then give us another quick jump.
right? I always love it. Good old Uncle Elon, we call him, has always got a trick up his sleeve, and man, when he
Anytime.
speaks, the price moves. It's
Yeah,
pretty
man.
awesome.
Whenever he picks up the mic,
Yep.
it's amazing.
Call him J. Powell Jr.
J. Powell Jr. Talk about moving the needle. All right.
That's it.
Last but not least. Wait. Have you made your so pretty much hold off, wait a minute. It's wait until it drops through, wait for confirmation. That's what I'm hearing.
Pretty much.
Not gonna
I'm
do
trading
anything.
bearish on it. I took my bearish trade up in here, working really well with it. Down in here, I'll probably convert it into a butterfly. My butterfly body on one position is at 140, and then I've got a bunch of put debit spreads that I'll probably convert the rest of them into a butterfly and work the same trade in reverse.
Hmm.
Um, 140 ultimate target. There is some angular support here, so if we trend today, we could probably see it touch 145. Just looking at this measured move here, definitely going to be great for trading. And if you know how to trade bearish, man, that's pretty much like shooting fish in a barrel.
Hmm.
I love
Yep.
being a bear. Um, as far as in the next quarter, we could see it find support around 140. As long as it doesn't reach that too much, we can go all the way to 120 and be respectably within range of a good pullback. We certainly have a line down here, 130, 120. It's really possible, but uh,
That's more
long
where
term,
that's more where Elon thinks it should be.
right, right. And that's cool because, if he wants to go and say, hey, I'm going to buy back my stock right around here, you know what happens. It usually bounces right off.
Yeah,
So,
everybody's like, "Well, I'm gonna go for a ride too."
exactly, exactly. Take a
Well,
ride in the Tesla. I posted that yesterday. I posted for the bullish bears. I said, it's great to be able to let's see, take a ride in a Tesla when you know where it's going to go. So you've been there before, something along those
mhm.
lines. But yeah, we're looking at finishing that gap. I think.
All right, good stuff. Looking at finishing that gap.
Yes, sir.
All
Moving
right,
on.
last one. Number 10, Chipotle, CMG.
One of my formal, formerly I traded this way back.
Apparently, Wall Street gave him tons of price target increases. Many of them
I
calling
remember
for the stock to top $2,000 a share, up seven and
I,
a half.
I remember trading that back in 2018, and then in this mess, we know what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Picked up a bargain around here around 415, 420, and this has been a great investing stock to buy and hold forever and ever and ever. Well, now we've had some volatility, so let's play it out. Um, Typical cup and handle. We came right to rim line one and said, to hell with you, we're not pulling back here. Went to rim line two, said, not
Nope.
enough.
Yep.
We're still going to crush it. And my goodness, man, that thing has some freaking clout. Um, I would love to see them do a
Wow.
forward split so that the retail can go and actually afford some of it. Because I mean, trading it above $2,000 a share, that's a big chunk of change for your average retail trader. So
Yeah.
unless you've got a sizable account, probably not messing with that too much. This is pretty much an institutional stock.
Yeah.
And that cup and handle, it just shot right on through it, man. I mean, you got a little pullback, rim line one pullback. That was it.
Huh.
If you didn't get in down here,
Wham.
you missed the boat, sir.
Yep.
So when we get these cup and handles, and they shoot like this, look for it to become kind of the measured move setup as well. Let me see if I can find an example. There isn't one. But when you get these as a consolidation point, think of it as this. This is the measured move up from here, made as 50% retracement base of the cup. You know, when we see these break like this, oftentimes we can get a full measured move out of that. So, I mean, later on, years down the road, we could see this thing push to 2,800. No problem. It's got that kind of strength. When it comes to short term, this is parabolic. I'd almost certainly expect at least a short pullback to test 2000 one more time and then continue on. But, just more than anything, it's an investment stock. But I mean, look at this. Even on a 2 hour, we have measured moves. We see them all the time. Measured moves are probably our favorite thing to trade ever. And I'd love to see a healthy pullback and test that $2,000 bill. Um, Maybe even get so far as to say, okay, test the base of that big old mother bar. Love to see that, but with the strength that it's shown us, might not even get that. So this is hard to say where you can time this one for long entry, but it's been a great buy and hold for a long time. So
Yeah, I'd
do
love to
what you will with it.
I'd love to get in and ride that third wave today, but it's just too expensive.
Yeah, that's a spendy stock.
I mean, what are you going to get out of that? A few points.
Yeah,
All right.
more or less. And then the options, you don't want to know.
I don't want to know what the options are. Well,
Yeah.
anyways, that's our show for today, folks. Thank you very much for stopping in and checking us out. We are Pat versus the mainstream. I'm Devin. That's Jeremy. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell. Let us know you love us, and let us know if there's something you'd like us to talk about in the future. We would like to have that community interaction. So thank you for that. Have a great day. Take care,
See
Jay.
ya.